All right, second half of adverse childhood experiences, dealing with childhood trauma and its impact, which is major. In this part of the lesson, we'll also be looking at like how you can overcome childhood trauma because so many people do. There's so many examples of people who have inspirational stories that overcame childhood traumas. We'll talk about that as well. All right, first off, how do these experiences impact a victim as an adult? Well, obviously, as a child, if you're going through all these sort of problems, and one thing that's going to happen is you're going to have lower academic achievement. You're going to have lower academic achievement. Like you're not going to do well in school. There could be misbehavior. You could be unfocused. You might have a lot of absenteeism. You might miss school a lot. So, like, I mean, all these things make sense, right? So you're going to do worse academically. And then second, that leads to lower employment success. The worse you do in school, the less likely you are to get a job that pays well, less likely to go on to college. All of those things make sense, right? Well, there's also other problems. You have impaired social success as an adult, which means you don't have as many, your friend network isn't as great. So that's a problem. Look at this employment aspect. A score and indicators of impaired worker performance. So as you can see, absenteeism is the first one on the left. So that's missing more than 2 days a month of work. And you can see people with 4 or more ACEs have a lot more absenteeism than people with 0. It's pretty huge. And it just consistently goes up, right? Serious financial problems, way higher percent here with almost over double the people with 4 versus 0. And then over on the right-hand side, serious problems performing the job, huge, almost triple in the ACEs that have 4 or more versus the people that only have 0. So significant impacts in job performance and job opportunities, of course. All right. Alcoholism is a big problem for people that have lots of ACEs. I mean, this isn't a shock, right? Depression, again, drug use, eating disorders, obesity, high risk sexual behavior, smoking, suicide, and certain chronic diseases. I mean, the bottom line is that when you have a lot of adverse childhood experiences and you have a lot and you've experienced this trauma, then you are going to potentially and high likelihood experience some really bad outcomes as a result. Not only because you witnessed it and seen it, you probably think that drug abuse and these other things are the right way to behave. All right, let's just look at some charts here. Childhood experiences underlying chronic depression. You can see here on the chart, women tend to experience depression more than men, or at least report it certainly more than men. And you can see in the red, women with 4 or more ACEs. I mean, almost 60% of women with 4 or more ACEs have a lifetime history of depression. Not a, I had a period where I had depression. Okay, a lot of people have a period where they're depressed, but a lifetime history of depression. That is very debilitating. In men, it's still pretty high. It is about 35% of men with 4 or more ACEs. But then look at 0. Look at the people who have 0 ACEs. It's about a third of the people with 4 or more ACEs. Childhood experiences underline suicide attempts. So people that have ACE scores of 0 have a very low suicidality, but then 4 or higher, we're talking almost 20%, probably about 5 times to 6 times higher for people with 4 or more ACEs. So suicide and adverse childhood experiences are highly tied together. ACE scores and the risk of perpetrating domestic violence. Now, perpetrating means you're the person who's doing the abusing. And so you can see that women with 5 or more ACEs, 10% likelihood of them abusing other people. And with men, it's close to 15% abusing other people. But notice the trend. If you have 0 ACEs, the chance that you abuse others in a domestic abuse is less than 5%. It's actually pretty close to 2% probably. But then with women, it's about 5 times higher for people who with 5 or more ACEs. And with men, you're about 2% of likelihood of abusing when you have 0 ACEs, but almost 15. It's about again, about 6 or 7 times higher. So that is huge. All right, now the good news is this. There's a way to overcome adverse childhood experiences and childhood trauma, and it's called resilience. And there are so many people who have inspirational stories that went through really bad things and had a very abusive or neglectful situations, and yet they could overcome it. So there's hope for you too if you're someone who has a lot of aces. You've got to develop resilience. If you look above me, there's a modern definition of resilience. It's learning to be goal oriented, having some sort of vision, being proactive, and not just waiting for the adversity to happen to you, but you go out and you change your life. And this happens both in large ways and small ways every single day, overcoming challenges. So let's just define resilience first. The ability to bounce back from life's difficulties. That's what resilience is. You can bounce back from it. It can be described as varied and dynamic mix of many traits like determination. So having determination, that's hard for someone with a lot of aces, but if you can develop it, that's what's going to allow you to overcome aces. Toughness, optimism, faith. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Um, Positivity and hope. Some of these things are a little easier for some than others because some of us are naturally pessimistic. Some of us are naturally positive. And the people that are a little more naturally positive, they have an advantage a little bit here. But resilience can be developed by either type of person, whether pessimistic or someone who is positive. And resilience can counteract aces. That's huge. Um, this psychologist from Duke University says a child might have a temperamental resilience, just an easygoing optimism, determination, etc., that is quite protective against adversity, says Katie Rasenbaum, a research scholar at the Center for Child and Family Policy at Duke University. So, like, as I was saying, like, just personality wise, your temperament may lend you more toward overcoming childhood adversity because you have kind of an optimistic, determined nature, and that's huge. I think I feel, with the childhood adversity that I suffered, I think that a lot of it, my overcoming it, or let's not say a lot, but at least part of my overcoming childhood adversity certainly had to do with my optimism. I won't say I'm terribly easygoing, but I am optimistic and I am determined. Um, I think this more common, though, she says, that protective factors such as nurturing relationship with supportive adults will build a child's resilience. In which case, if you are a statistician, you would consider resilience as the mediator that leads to a positive outcome. So I appeal to this. I really associate with this as well because I had teachers that actually impacted me. The reason I'm a teacher is because of teachers who had nurturing relationships with me, and so that's huge. That's something that can be really important. Or coaches. I personally, it wasn't coaches with me. It was a teacher, but coaches, teachers, those are the people that can have a huge impact and give you resilience. So let's look at the list of examples of resilience. But before we do that, look up above here. Did you know that research shows that the strongest protective factor linked with resilience to childhood trauma is the reliable presence of a sensitive, nurturing, and responsive adult? Having some adult that cares about you gives you resilience. That's huge. And it may not be a person in your family. You may have to rely on a teacher or a coach and connect with them. All right, relationships with competent caregivers or caring adults, that's the key right there. That is protective. And sometimes for some inspirational stories and movies that you see, it's because someone came into your life and cared about you and that turned it around. By the way, parental resilience is second, and what this is talking about, you may be like, wait a second, I thought the usually the adverse childhood experiences are from the parents. Well, right, but what we're talking about here is you may have one parent who um, has suicidality, has alcohol abuse or drug abuse. They have criminal issues. They've been incarcerated. They may have mental illness on top of it. Like literally, this one parent has four or five, aces right there. Maybe they abused your mother, and then that happens. But because the other parent has resilience, because the other parent can overcome the adversity that they have, that gets passed on to you. You see that, and it's inspirational to you. But by the way, the resilience may also come from your grandparent, a grandmother, a grandfather, an aunt, an uncle. These people coming into your life can make a huge difference. Also, having a sense of purpose. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, the big thing here is that we see this with faith. Religious faith can give someone a ton of resilience in life. So, someone that's been through really tough things but has religious faith, that can be something. I mean, you see that a lot where someone who has gone through some really tough times and has a religious faith, that can make a big difference. I really associate with that as well. Individual competencies like problem solving skills. These are almost like things that you learn in school, like you're really good at something in school. That can give you resilience. Self regulation, meaning you can control your emotions. And then also autonomy. Maybe you become really good at taking care of yourself. And in your ability to take care of yourself gives you some confidence and resilience. And then also, of course, opportunities to connect with others. That may happen at school, that friendships, like really bonding friendships you have. It may happen on a team. That's huge. Like you'll see people who maybe have a lot of adverse childhood experiences, but because they played on a sports team and they connected with teammates and a coach, that makes a difference in their life. So those are examples of resilience. So the bottom line is, if you're someone who has childhood experiences that brought on trauma, and I have four ACEs, and you may be someone like me who has four or more, and it's through these different avenues that you can develop resilience. And if you've resisted, developing relationships with coaches or teachers, or developing faith, or any of these sort of things that are listed here, I encourage you. That's the way to change your life and to not necessarily have the negative outcomes that are typical of people that have a lot of adverse childhood experiences. All right, so hopefully you learned a lot about this, and you understand like how people do overcome really, really negative childhoods. All right, great. Thank you. Great job, guys. Take care. See you later.